Happy Thursday to you, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today I want to continue with my three-part series on dominance. And in that three-part series, I'm trying to answer three questions. Do we need to dominate our dogs? Next thing we're going to talk about is, what does dominance look like in my household? Look like in my relationship with my dog? And when and how do I use dominance? And that'll be tomorrow. So in the very first series, or the very first part one of this dominance series, we talked about what is the definition of dominance. It is exerting power and influence over others. And we talked about how if you live within a group, it's only a matter of time that you will feel the need to exert your power and influence over someone else in that group, or someone even in a group that is not yours, what we call between group. There will come a need. It's my way or the highway. You can't agree upon something. But for animals, dominance usually occurs and wraps itself around something competitive, some resource, something that they want, or something that they want to keep from someone else. We also learned that how do they get this done? How do they dominate one another? So outside of humans, how do dogs dominate dogs, wolves dominate wolves? Well, they use their influence because they don't have money and they don't have dialogue in the form of aggression, agonistic behaviors. And it's kind of three different layers. We have what we call instigative aggression. And that's where you're not really attacking anyone. You're just showing that you're a producer, that you have the capability and the means to take whatever you want whenever you want it, and to certainly defend anything that you have. We also learned that there's instrumental aggression. And that's where, I've decided I will take that. Or I've decided, no, you will not take that from me. And that's when a fight can ensue. And then other times there's hostile aggression. And that's where I really don't want what you have. I just want to take you out. You've become way too big. You've now morphed into a serious opponent to me, some sort of threat to me, and therefore you need to go. And then lastly, we learned that hierarchies were put in place for animals smart enough to know their place, so that not every single thing within a group would be fought over with fang and claw. It was a substitute for continuous aggression, not a substitute for aggression, period, but for continuous aggression. Because you cannot live on this planet in a group without becoming aggressive, either yourself as the attacker or yourself as the receiver of an attack. You can't live on this planet without that happening. And so we have to kind of face the realization that when we live with dogs, there will be dominance of some sort taking place in our household. Whether it's us over our dogs, exerting our power and influence over our dogs, or they doing it over us, or to the other resident dogs that occupy the same household. I'd like to read a little passage from Stephen Spott, Dr. Stephen Spott's book, Societies of Wolves and Free-Ranging Dogs. And he affirms what I said yesterday. Whether you like it or not, dominance is in your household. It will be there, and you must deal with it. He says patterns of agonistic behavior have been considered essential for living in large groups. Yep, there you go. Way to back me up, Dr. Spott. Essential for living in large groups. He says the consequence is social stability passed along through generations. Social stability. So let's talk about how we're going to get a little stability in our household today. How we're going to use dominance in that way. Actually, that would come tomorrow. I want to talk about what it actually looks like in your household, because there's so many misconceptions about dominance. So I'm going to go through it real quickly, and I've kind of marked it off up here on the board. So again, always feel free to, later on with the video, you download this video, freeze frame it, and then write the stuff down. First things first, dominance cannot exist in your household. Period. Even in the wild, it cannot exist without submission. It can't. So at any given moment, you're either exerting your power and influence over your dog, or your dog is exerting its power and its influence over you. You're either submitting or you are requiring the other animal to submit. And it's typically agonism is the tether that conceptually tethers submission to dominance and dominance to submission so that they can interpret and reinforce each other. Top down, bottom up. They reinforce each other. Again, typically through agonism is the conceptual tether. Also, dominance is dynamic, fluid. It's a continuum. Notice it just moves from seriousness at times to play. Have you ever played with your dog and suddenly the play morphed into something serious? And have you ever been serious with your dog and moments later you're playing with your dog? This happens. You can exert your power and influence by telling your dog, lay down now. And then moments later, you're playing with your dog, playing tug of war, and all of a sudden you let go of the toy and you go, oh my gosh, you're so powerful. You're such an incredible beast you are. And that's the dog exerting this power and influence over you. Even though you let it happen, their perception is, oh, I took that from Bryan. So it's dynamic. It changes. It's found within context. Within a context. There is no full-time dominating occurring in your household. It requires a tremendous amount of energy to exert your power and influence over another individual. And if you're going to attack them, if it's going to get physical, know this. Contact is risky. So that's why there's more instigative aggression than there is instrumental and hostile aggression. Contact is risky. You can be harmed. You can be the one that's the victim, not the antagonist. So therefore, it's always found within a context, and usually two contexts. The number one by far is something competitive, a competitive context. Let me give you an example. Just this week alone, there was an incident in which a teenage girl tried to forcefully remove a 3-year-old family dog from the bed. So the dog was up on her mother's bed, and she walked into the room and wanted to remove the dog from the bed because mom needed the dog to go to its kennel. And when she reached and grabbed the dog to pull it off the bed, it gave her 3 stitches right in the face. Now, this is a dog that was using aggression in the form of instrumental, actually not hostile. It was instrumental. It wanted to keep its place on the bed. It did not want to get off the bed. And it was not going to allow her to forcefully remove him from the bed. Now, flip the context around. So he's exerted his power and influence over her, but flip it around. Previous to that, for many weeks, even months, this girl had successfully removed the dog from the bed, but the means in which she did so was through a long leash that was attached to the dog that the mother had already placed on the dog so the daughter could take the dog off the bed and go put it in its crate, or through the use of a remote training collar. Either way, anytime a dog decides that it's going to defend something, whether it's my spot on that bed or that great bone I have over there, they will, within a half a second, make an assessment. Who am I? Who are you? What are your capabilities? What weapons do you have? How many times have I won situations? How many times have I lost situations? They take that into account in a half a second. And this dog, through inconsistent training, gosh, I cannot say enough about don't be inconsistent. But through inconsistent training, was sensitized to the long leash and the collar, and even more sensitized to their power, and realized that when this teenage girl wielded that power, that he said, I will graciously hop off the bed and do your bidding. But when she did not wield that power, and the assessment came back and said, she's unarmed, boom, that was it. And the attack occurred. How many of you have walked up to your dog while it was eating at some point in your life, and your dog said, excuse me, a little further away, please. back up. How many times have you tried to remove something from your dog's mouth that you thought was harmful, only to be bitten? How many times has your dog dominated you, exerted its power and influence over you? Well, if it has, it did it in most situations out of a competitive context. And if you don't get it with your dog, get it with yourself. You may be a producer. I honestly consider myself a producer. I really do. I have the biology to be able to exert my power and influence over others. And I've done it since I was a weed to a grasshopper, and my mentor, a special forces survival instructor, definitely exerted his power and influence over me. So they say that when you're a young mammal, you learn through mimicry and free exploration. Well, I learned from both of those, but I also think I was given that biology for that. But tell you what, when I was in the military, I did a whole lot of saluting. I did a whole lot of submitting. And then I got a little rank on me, and guess what? I had other guys down below me submitting to me. So in other words, it was found within a context. It was never full-time. It's never full-time in your house. So anyone that tells you must always be the pack leader, you must never allow your dog on your bed. Well, I tell you what, I don't have an issue with dogs on beds until they have an issue with me getting in the bed. It's found within a context. The other context is non-competitive. Where do we see this the most? Well, among resident dogs, we see it in a principle of resemblance situation. And this is where a dog will use hostile aggression. Hostile, remember, that's the intent to injure. Hostile aggression against the other animal that resembles itself. Maybe the same age, same gender, about the same size. I'm simply trying to displace you in an attempt to have a space, an unhindered living space, unharassed. I want to carve out my own living space, and I don't need you occupying any part of it. But here's the problem. There's the inability to disperse. Our owner refuses to send one of us away. Because see, if we were on our own out in the wild, either you would leave or I would leave. But we would not stay here in this makeshift zoo. Because that's really what your house is at the end of the day. It's a zoo. It may not have bars or chain link or acrylic. What it does in essence is it affects your dog's ability to leave. And let me tell you something. When you go to a zoo, you look at all those animals back there, you are not looking at a mirror of nature. Animals do things in a zoo that you never catch them doing in the wild. So this is usually when we see it the most, the non-competitive, is I don't want an object. I don't want your food. I don't want your toy. I just want you to leave. I don't want to live with you any longer. But yet so many times we force that situation. Oh, I can't rehome my dog. God, if you were your dog, you'd pack your suitcase and run. Run. Okay, another way that we see non-competitive is the relationship between you and your dog is when your dog knows the command. You know your dog knows the command. You have proofed it out. You've trained it. You have referent times 100. And the dog refuses to do the command. It's got something else, some other agenda. No, I'm not doing that. We see it so many times. And other times, hey, feed me. Well, I don't feel like feeding you right now. It's not time for you to eat. You eat in about another hour from now. Pester, 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 pester. Uncle, I'll feed you. Geez, gosh, I got work to do. There you go. The animal just exerted its influence and power over you. So this is nothing to be afraid of. Just be aware of it. Because being ignorant will have you wade into a situation in which maybe you can ill afford. Next thing. Know this. This is super important. Animals and people learn. Let me just kind of highlight that in red. They learn to be dominant. They learn to be dominant or submissive based on personal history of having previously won or lost. Feedback. Winners win in the wild, baby. If I trump another animal, then the likelihood that I'm going to attempt to trump another animal is tenfold. And we see this with humans. Feedback, reinforcement. So the more I win, using whatever strategy, even if it's submissive. Animals and humans that have scrounger personalities, they're the ones that receive ulcers from producers who give ulcers. They develop strategies in which they win interactions. So that producer, he thought he was going to come over here and trump me. Next thing you know, I actually got that thing to give me food. I got that thing to align with me. That darn thing is on my side. See how I work that? Oh yeah, they're smart. They always exploit the investment of producers. Always. Wicked smart. The smartest dogs I've ever trained have always been scroungers. They're way smart. But they've learned that. They've learned it from their personal history and previous encounters. So what does that mean in your household? Think about it. When you decide to exert your power and influence over your dog, do you win or do you lose? Think about that. If you feel like you lost, you go, my gosh, that dog pulled me all over the darn city. Like for 5 blocks. I kind of lost that little exchange there. The dog pulled me and I just kind of followed behind. Okay, learn from it. Go home, practice, work on it. Work on it. Until the animal starts to now pick up, hey, I got it. I'm supposed to maintain a relative position to your body. Work like a team. But even remember, there's no 2 number 1s in any group. There's no 2 number 2s or 2 number 3s. At any given moment, you're either influencing the behavior of the individual right next to you, or you're not. Maybe they're influencing their behavior over you. When I trained dolphins for the United States Navy, we had multiple dolphins because they would exert their influence over us. Constantly. Hey, load up, hop in the boat. We got to go out to the ocean. We got to do our work. Nope, not doing it. Alrighty then. So how do we exert our influence over them? Well, tell you what, you're going to go hungry today. Maybe tomorrow you'll be hungry enough to want to work. Next day comes around, nope, still not going, not that hungry. All right, well, they had this thing called a rub rope. It's a big old fat rope about 4 inches in diameter, string across diagonally across their pen. They used to love to rub against those rub ropes. Go over them, under them, swim around, dorsal fins. Oh yeah, they loved it. Boop, out, there it goes. Oh geez, wait a minute, excuse me. I don't mind not having fish, but you just took my rub rope. I sure did. If you want to hop in the boat and go to work, I'll give it back to you. So they hop in the boat to go to work, we give them back the rub rope. It's constant, guys, constant. Last thing I want to put out here is the weak leads the weaker. Know that. There will always be one individual within any household, within any group, any organization. There will always be one that is more capable and takes more advantage of that capability of exerting their influence. If you have a group in which there are 2 producers and 4 scroungers, if the 2 producers disappear, I've seen this. I've done projects with Alaska Game and Fish in which we watched this very thing happen when 2 packs of wolves met and had a darn gang fight. Gloves came off. They just annihilated one another. Right then, the leadership of both packs, the head was cut right off. So what do you do now? Now it's just a bunch of scroungers, a bunch of subordinates, adolescents. What do you do? Well, you have a choice. You can either disband, every wolf for itself, or we can kind of work together. But to work together, how do we get that thing done? Some scrounger, even though genetically I have scrounger in genetics, I rise up to the occasion and start acting like a producer. And back to Stephen Spott's book, he affirms that when he writes, remove the dominant animal and subsequent aggression subsides only after another becomes dominant. Guys, it's always there, always going to be there. And in your household, that's what it looks like. An animal trying to keep some valuable, that it perceives a valuable resource away from you, away from another resident dog. It's a dog that, like one that I owned one time, saw one of the other dogs in my household chewing on the ball. It simply got up, it walked over, it stared at the other dog. The other dog's chewing on the ball, looks up, does that quick assessment, and goes, I think there's another ball in the backyard. And spits it out and goes away. And that dog achieved its objective using instigative aggression. So always keep that in mind. There's always an objective. It takes a lot of energy. But if you want to maintain stability in your household, among all of your dogs, among your family members, if you want your dog to come to you when you call it, to do all these things, I hear people say, don't jump on me, don't jump on anyone else. Be quiet when I say so. You're driving me crazy. All these things I hear day in and day out. I don't want my dog to bite my daughter again. I got it. To make sure you don't put yourself in a position in which that animal can now exert its power and influence over you in that fashion. Learn from it. So we have to, guys. I know everyone wants this. And some people are out there, these crazy people who debunk this dominance theory. Well, I don't know where you're living, or what hole your head is in, but you need to pull that darn thing out. Because your dog's the one that's going to end up being euthanized or end up being in a shelter and rehomed time and time and time again, because everyone thinks they just want to get along. Love, peace, dove. I'll tell you what, owning a dog's not Woodstock. It's not. They have fang and claws. I've been bitten. I wear the scars of when dogs exerted their power and influence over me. I exert my power and influence over my dog within a context. Yes, we play. Yes, we pet. You've seen Cap, and he loves me, man. I love that darn dog. But there comes times where I need to exert my power and influence over my dog. I need to dominate my dog. And there's nothing wrong with that. He says, yes, sir, 3 bags full. And then there's times where he pesters me, and I said, yes, that's right. Good. All right, Captain, I'll do it, buddy. Let's just go. I'm going to get up. I was trying to work, but I'm going to go grab that ball, and we're going to go play ball. I'm with you, buddy. Give and take, guys. Remember, one can't exist without the other. It's dynamic, it's fluid. It operates on a continuum from serious to play, back from play back to serious. It's changing all the time. It's object-driven. It's usually competitive in nature. Non-competitive tends to be more serious because any aggression used for this is just to either acquire something of value or defend something of value. This is to take someone out. Remember, it's learned. So if your dog's learning this, teach it, hey, you can submit and life is going to be perfectly fine for you. And then always remember, no matter how weak you think you are, if your dog thinks you're weaker, then it's going to move right on up that little ladder in a real hurry. Okay, guys, so stay tuned for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to cover the last part of this series in which we're going to learn when and how do I use dominance. How do we do it? When do we do it? So stay tuned for that for tomorrow. Until then, be safe.